Hi, my name is Nigel Griffiths. I work in Power Systems ATS Europe. In this movie we're going to look at migrating from a SDMC, Systems Director Management Console, to a HMC, the Hardware Management Console that's been around for a long time. Fortunately, both of these boxes are the same hardware. The SDMC has a bit more memory and an extra disk, but that never does any harm, and so converting it is just a matter of saving the configuration and starting the new code. Fortunately, the whole process is covered in this red paper. The name means it's quite hard to actually find it, but now you know. You have the link down the bottom and you're looking for this red paper 4872. I've just read through this. It's all fairly easy to follow and actually carry out. I didn't find any problems at all. Briefly then, we're first of all going to capture some information. First we're going to actually clear if we've got any service events. So if we've got any hardware problems or software errors, then we're going to correct those before we actually take the move. The SDMC will have some historic information that may be useful for problem diagnosis, so those need to be cleared first. If you have a HMC at a 773 level, then you need to upgrade that. We recommend that you disconnect it, do the upgrade, and only connect it back after the SDMC conversion has taken place. This avoids some compatibility issues with the versions. Then we're going to save some information, and we'll cover that in a moment. There are some other things you might want to consider, like the security settings about the users that you created on the SDMC, maybe LDAP and things, if you've got any scheduled operations, or the network time protocol has been set up. Hopefully all those things are covered in some sort of standard configuration that you have for your SDMC and HMC type machines. The second half is the rebuild. We literally just put the DVD in, boot from it, and do a standard HMC install. Then we're going to set up with some of the information that we saved, particularly the network. The HMC will then discover the machines, you'll connect them, give them access, and then it will discover from the service processors the LPARs and all the profiles, and then we're fairly back to normal. Then there's some other things you may want to set up that we've also saved, is like the users, the roles, operations, and network time protocol again. Those two red books are particularly good for installing the HMC that we won't cover in detail in this movie. We'll now look into our SDMC. We have a very simple configuration. Our SDMC is connected to one Power 730, and it's called green, so we'll see green all over the place. We'll just give our machines colours so we can easily remember which is which. First thing to do then is to look at the problems. We find that in the health check in here, and it's called problems. We actually have a look at the top in here. It says problems 0, but there's 5 warnings, so we'll actually find those down in here. We could click on the tabs up there. So here we have for our green machine a bunch of warnings and some informational messages. If we just hover over one, we can see the error message, or the warning message, and the state of the virtual server, the LPAR green 2, changed to not available. Yes, now remember now, on March the 8th we shut down the machines because we were actually moving computer room. So we probably logged on and run the shutdown commands to our various virtual servers, and as far as SDMC, or Systems Director generally, it says, hang on, this endpoint spontaneously shut itself down, and gives us a warning message. Now, if we normally do that as part of our normal operations, we can actually teach the Systems Director to ignore these for a particular machine, or ignore this state change for all machines. In this case, of course, we're going to wipe out our Systems Director Management Console, so we can just delete those and clean them up. Now, in this case, we've only got one machine, so things are fairly simple. If you had lots of machines connected here, for example, a load of blade centers and a load of blades, worth going around deleting the warnings and information that you understand, and homing in on the ones you don't understand and need further investigation. Typically there will be critical errors, and you may have to update some software, upgrade the firmware, or replace hardware items to fix those critical errors. In this case, what have we got here? Yeah, the managed system was not found, and it's the green server itself. So in this case, we started up the SDMC, with the green machine still powered off, and it's giving us information saying, hey, by the way, I seem to have lost my machine. Again, in this case these aren't errors, and we can just delete those to clean them up. If you have critical errors, of course you should have been monitoring for those and correcting those as you go, and we really want to encourage you to use the logging information, which may actually help with problem diagnosis and clean up those problems before we move to the HMC. Now then, one of the other things we meant to look at before we go any further is security, and you'll need to recreate your users, tasks, roles and groups. This is a bog standard system. It's only just been installed, and then we see we've only have the system admin user. Typically we do add individual users for every operator. That can help to work out who's doing what, and in particular if you want to shut down an SDMC or a HMC, you can see who's actually logged on and check with them that it's okay. So this isn't good practice. I assume that you'll have lots of other users in here, and we have the groups and the roles and the credential things in here. We certainly don't use LDAP, but again you need to capture those information. Worth looking at the usernames that are actually here to recreate those. Of course, for your LDAP and your roles and groups, you should have a sort of standard practice that you're using, and hopefully that's documented so you can reproduce that on the HMC when we get there. Before we finish with the graphical user interface, let's go to the Home tab, and this is resources without just a single machine, and if we go to the settings we find the regular details of how we actually set up the machine, and you can go through here collecting some of this information. Strictly speaking you don't need this. I would like to do belt and braces and have a look at some of these things. For example, let's look at the network configuration. Reminder of the IP addresses for the SDMC and for its address on the network to the FSPs, the service processors. We're going to collect this on the command line in a minute. I'd be tempted to get my smartphone out and take a picture of most of these panels as reminders of how it's set up. And we have in here the network, the VPN, the time and date, and lots of other things in here that we might actually want to go and collect, like the LDAP settings. Now we should have those documented already, but I'd just make sure that we got everything before we go. In fact, we don't need very much when we get to the HMC. Once we get it on the network and perhaps the users set up, the HMC will talk to the service processors and pull out the actual machine configuration and the logical partitions and all the profiles for us. So we don't actually have to move all that data across. Following down the red paper, it says to log on to the command line. So I've logged in as sysadmin here with our sysadmin password, and it's asking us to run a couple of commands. I'm literally going to cut and paste these out of the document. So this is going to list all the systems connected to the machine. We've got just the one called green, and we have its serial number and things in here. If you've got more machines, you'll have a long list of machines there. It also says go and see the list of frames. Now we've only got a simple 730, and so we don't have any frames, and we want the connections in here. So this is the SMCLI, so it's actually a systems director command, and we can find information in here. This is the actual port on the machine for the network, so I presume it's port 1 on the back of the box, and this is the actual IP address being used by the service processor. We may need that later on. Next, in the red book, it wants us to make sure that we know the service processor passwords, because we'll need that when we connect the HMC to the same box. So it's going to ask us to run a command to change the password, and effectively it's going to ask us here the password is this, and set the new password. If we send it to the same one, this is effectively going to check that we know the same password. Now first of all I'm going to clearly use the wrong password because this isn't going to work, and we'll get an error. It's incorrect, so it's telling us that we don't know the password, so we need to go and fix that in the red paper. It tells us how to do that if we really lost track of the passwords we used. Then we can temporarily ask for a short-term PE password, so we can reset it. Failing that, there's other ways of resetting those passwords. The white paper red book has the details of how to do that. So now we'll try it again with the right password. Temporarily set it to secret, which is not the one we usually use, because I really don't want to tell you that. Oops, now I've got a typo in here, and let's go and fix that. Okay. And that's confirmed that I've got the right password and it set it back to the same name. That means I do know the password, so I'm going to write that down. Okay, let's clear the screen at that point. So the fourth thing they want us to do is to do a backup of the profile data onto a memory key. So we use this command, it's the media devices, and we'll get a list of them. I put a USB key that's been formatted correctly and empty into the SDMC, and so we'll get a list of the available media now. And so we see we have a CD-ROM in the machine, and we have a USB flash memory device with a rather peculiar name. The next job now is to mount that, so let's clear the screen and we'll mount. Okay, that's mounted. Now we can run the backup command onto that media. So here's the backup profile data of our particular machine, and we're putting it onto the media device and giving it a file name. This is the serial number and the backup file, so we can remember what it is, and we'll just run that now. Okay, that's worked okay. Now we can remove the actual device, but I guess to be clean we need to do an unmount operation. Clear the screen, and there we go, unmounted cleanly. Now the next thing to do is we can remove the machines from the SDMC, or we can just use a command line as we do that here. If we had 100 machines attached, or blades, then maybe we actually want to generate that as a script, and so we can just use the rm command to do that. If we got one or two here, we could do it on the graphical user interface just as easily. So we'll just remove the system. Okay, nice and quick. That's it, we're done. Now we should open the CD, the DVD drive, pop the HMC install media into it, close the drive, and then we can power off the SDMC and reboot off the DVD drive and do the installation of the HMC. Well, that's it for this movie. I hope you'll find that converting on the same hardware an SDMC to HMC is really easy.